Welcome to A1R Psychic Radio. You're here on Moonstruck TV with Amanda Hall, Psychic, all the way from the Gold Coast. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic week wherever you are in this planet of ours. Yes, the USA has gone into daylight savings, so we've got a little bit of a different time change now around the world for the next 6 months. And isn't that exciting? It's always good to have some change. So let's kick the show off very quickly now with the Secrets of Tarot card of the week, which is the Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune usually means elevation in money. Wouldn't that be nice? We can all sort of be rubbing our hands with glee with a little bit of extra money coming in. It can be an overseas trip or a completion phase. Now, I'm sure with the coronavirus, not too many people are planning an overseas trip at the moment, but let's look at it as an overseas connection, that we're all joined together around the globe by this pandemic that's taking the world at the moment by, at a very fast rate of knots. And let's hope for a very quick completion to this, that they get some answers, that they contain the virus, whether it be through isolation and shutting down communities. If that's the way that we get on top of this pandemic quicker, well, then bring it on, I say, because I think we all need to be looking to really play our part in this global sort of illness that's gripping the world, that we all need to be much, much more conscious of what's sort of actually happening in our own world. Now, I want to move quickly on to where the planets are this week, and I'm going to go very quickly with the candles this week because it is the full moon. We've got the full moon in Virgo, so yes, I'll be burning my full moon candle. Yes, I'll also be burning my Virgo candle because it's the full moon in Virgo. And the reasons why I do that is I burn the two on whatever placement the moon actually happens to be in. So the full moon is from the 10th to the 12th of March, or March 10 to 12. So we're already starting to feel the effects of the full moon around the world. I like to work on a 7-day cycle. I work on 2 days on the approach, 3 days of the full moon, and then 2 days on the decline. So for those of you that might not want to work with a large candle, you can get a gift box. This week I've made it up with the full moon, the Virgo candle, and the healing candle. Now, the reasons why I've still left the healing candle in there is because of the coronavirus. I think we all need to be looking very, very consciously, collectively as a globe, trying to heal the world at the moment. Now, the reasons why I wanted to rush through that is because we have a lot to talk about astrologically this week, and I feel that this is probably a little bit more important than me raving on about candles. Now, number one, the full moon in Virgo. The full moon means it's a time when we can set our intentions, where we release things. We release things from the past or things that we no longer need in our lives. So I believe if we collectively around the world all try and focus on releasing this coronavirus and releasing it out into the universe, that we've all learnt our lessons in whatever way they are that's connected with this pandemic. If we can release it now, particularly that the full moon is in Virgo. Now, the reasons why I'm saying now more than ever is when we have a full moon in Virgo, this is the ideal time for physical health. This is the time when we can get to the bottom of emotional issues, where we can get to the bottom of physical health issues as well. So I believe if we collectively as a globe all focus our energies on trying to get to the bottom of this pandemic, and that may just be by all of us being a little bit more aware of how we're feeling physically. If we have a sniffle or we have a slight headache or we genuinely don't feel right, then stay home. For goodness sake, don't go shopping, don't go to work, don't do anything. Give yourself the isolation of staying home. It may be probably 9 times out of 10 absolutely nothing. But if you do that, you're not only looking after yourself, you're looking after everyone else as well. And the fact, if it is absolutely nothing, your immune system has the opportunity to bounce back a lot quicker than if you actually step out and you pick up another germ, because you are already a little bit more susceptible to something if you're not feeling right. If you've got a little bit of a sniffle or a headache, or you're feeling a bit tired or just feeling a little bit down in some way, then my suggested course of action would be to stay home. Now, we need to look astrologically at where the planets are sitting at the moment. Now, we've just spoken about the full moon in Virgo, and that's a very important time of the year. We also have the sun sitting in Pisces. Now, the sun is still sitting in Pisces, holding hands or conjunct the planet Neptune. So this is where we get things sort of coming out of the fog a little bit. We've got sort of a lot of theories and conspiracy theories and a lot of people having an opinion on what's happening. Why have we got this virus? Why is it airborne? It's traveling across the countries. It's traveling across the water. It's coming on aeroplanes. It's just, somebody sneezes and, we can all pick up the bug. And I don't want to sound like I'm scaremongering. That's the last thing I want to do. What I'm trying to do is help everybody sort of calm down a little bit and look at this in a more realistic way if we possibly can. Now, the fact that we have the sun in Pisces at the moment means that we're all a little bit emotional, but it's also indicating that this is an ending cycle, because Pisces is the final sign of the zodiac for the end of the astrological year and will soon be moving into the sign of Aries. So to me, it sort of indicates, while we've got Neptune here and Neptune's coming out of the fog, and Neptune's going to start to share with us some answers or some different ways of approaching this, with the intention of the Pisces energy, of it being a little bit watery, of it being a little bit more sort of deeper, psychological sort of ways of approaching this, not just approaching it from a practical, pragmatic sort of medical way. Maybe we need to be sort of delving underneath the surface too and having a look at where maybe emotionally, where is all these, what seems to be out of control emotions coming from, where people are going into panic buying and things like this. And then there's other people that seem to be walking around as if nothing's happened and have no concept of really what's going on, that they're living in la la land. I don't know that there's necessarily a right or a wrong way to handle this. I think each individual person on the planet will handle it in their own way. But the other big news that's coming out of this pandemic, and it's another area that I want to focus on the show this week, is the world heading for a recession? Now, it's one of those words that we sort of almost call it a swear word. We don't ever want to think of the world slowing down or the world going into recession or money markets crashing and what happens to our money and what happens to our savings in the bank and what if banks go broke, and all these sort of things again come into this panic situation where people sort of tend to think of recession and they think of the word depression that happened in the 1920s, and they start to sort of panic, particularly when we've got a pandemic at the same time. People sort of tend to start to think the worst. Now, look, I'm not certainly saying that I think we're heading towards a depression. I don't mean that for 1 second. But when I looked at the charts yesterday, and it sort of suddenly dawned on me with the word recession, and it's a word that I don't tend to sort of focus on because I'm such a supreme optimist. I don't tend to take too much notice of what they sort of talk about the money markets are doing. Yes, I keep an eye on it, but I sort of think, oh, yes, well, that's just them doing what they do. But it dawned on me yesterday, with so many planets sitting in the planet of Capricorn, in the energy of Capricorn, it means that we are looking at big business. We are looking at governments. We are looking at not just our own personal finances. We're looking at finances on a global front. Now, when you look at things like that, and you look at, we've got Mars, the planet of action, is asking us all to do something constructive in our lives at the moment, is to get up off the couch and do something, take some responsibility. We have Jupiter, the planet of opportunity and expansion, sort of saying, okay, let's not exaggerate this. Let's sort of look at it for what it is. And again, maybe on a global front, we can all pull together as a world, not just as an individual. We've had Pluto, the planet of transformation, in there well before the global financial crisis, and Pluto is nearing the end of his reign in Capricorn. He's only got another less than 2 years to go. But we also have the planet Saturn, which is the planet of discipline and the taskmaster. Now, Saturn's on its last 2 degrees of being in Saturn. So Saturn's already waved his big stick. He's already handed out the lessons that he was going to hand out to us. Now, it's interesting, when I also looked at, which is not a planet, but it is a luminary, is known as one of the moon's nodes. Now, the south node is always looking at trying to find the easy way out in a situation. Now, the actual south node is heading up this train of planets in Capricorn. So we have the south node almost holding hands or conjunct Mars. Now, that sort of really jumped out at me as governments trying to find the easy way out, or the way of softening what could very well be a recession, what could be seen as something that could trigger some crosswords or people going to fight over things or slashing prices or doing things to keep their market share, their market dominance. And we've seen that overnight with them slashing the price of the crude oil around the world. So that's the first sign of things like that. So I do feel that, look, there's a very, very strong chance the world will go into recession. If that does happen, it will be more because we as a globe need to look at the way that we handle the next 28 years of our lives, the next 28 to 30 years, not on a personal level, but on a nation level. We need to sort of find new ways of doing business with the ways that we've been conducting business for the last 28 to 30 years, which is a Saturn cycle. Obviously now are obsolete, our old hat, are out of date. So we as global nations need to find new ways of doing business. Now here in Australia, we found in the last couple of weeks that we now no longer manufacture motor vehicles. We now are reliant to bring them in from other countries around the world, which was a very sad day where a lot of people stood up and said, oh, gee, I didn't realise that. We've got no manufacturing left. Oh, isn't that a shame? And I think there's lots of countries around the world that are starting to turn around and say, okay, is this a wake-up call, the fact that we've got this virus, that we've all become so dependent on a few supply chains around the world? Maybe now as nations we need to go back and revisit and becoming more self-sufficient in our own economies. Now, I don't believe that that's necessarily such a bad thing. I've always been the type of person that's never considered you should put all your eggs in one basket. I've always believed you should have a plan A to Z, never mind just only having one plan. And I think what we did as different nations around the world, we started looking at ways that we could make more money. And if that meant by sending things offshore and manufacturing or buying goods from other countries or other nations, that's what we did. Instead of considering what would happen if all of a sudden that supply chain was no longer there. We didn't think that far. We sort of just never looked at it in that way. So maybe, just maybe, if the world does go into a recession, maybe it's the lesson that we all needed to have, and maybe it's a blessing in disguise. So I'm trying to put a positive slant on why we've got this coronavirus pandemic around the world and why the world looks like it's slipping into recession, that it's astrologically something was going to happen, and this is the most logical thing for it to be. It is connected with finances, it is connected with big business and the way that we conduct ourselves as governments and countries around the world. So to me, it's the perfect situation that's showing us that we need to look at things differently. Now, the other thing I'd like to quickly talk about before we take our first caller is the planet Chiron. Now, Chiron is a planet that we very rarely ever talk about because it's the planet that's called the wounded healer. And I looked at where Chiron was this morning in the chart before we came to air, and Chiron's actually about 4 degrees in Aries. Now, what that means in layman's terms is maybe the wounded healer in each and every one of us is asking us to heal ourselves. Because it's in the sign of Aries, it's asking us to be me first, put ourselves first, focus on ourselves. So I think it's also asking us to take responsibility for our own personal hygiene, our own health, and to really be very focused and quite selfish and say, hang on a minute, I don't feel well, I'm going to stay home. We're not going to be so focused on money or whether or not we're letting someone else down. We're going to put ourselves first, and by doing that, I feel then we're putting everybody else in the same bracket. We're looking after self first, and then I can help you. So I think that that's a very important message as well. And just before we wrap up the trip around the universe, I do need to talk about again that we've got Uranus still sitting in Taurus, and Uranus is holding hands or conjunct Venus. Now, on a positive upswing for those people that might be looking for romance, and it mightn't be the perfect time to go night clubbing or going out looking for romance, but there will be some loving relationships that will form at the moment. It can also be that we're looking at the things that we love or the things that we value in a completely different light, where maybe we were so obsessed with making money and going on holidays and buying a bigger car or a bigger house or a bigger boat or whatever. We're starting to look at the things that are the most important to us as our loved ones and our own health and our own well-being, and sort of just being happy with where we are with our lot, and sort of saying, well, hang on a minute, money isn't that important. My health is the health of my loved ones and my family and my friends is more important to me than any dollars in the bank. So that's where we're going to leave the astrological report this week. I do apologise that it was so long, but I do feel that there was so much in there that I needed to cover to give everybody a little bit of insight at what's happening. So we're now going to talk to Rachel in Parkersburg in West Virginia, USA. Are you there, Rachel?
Yes, I'm here.
You have a question for me that I can work with, please, Rachel?
Actually, I was just wanting to know if things are going to be getting better for me, because I had something happen to me on Wednesday, which turned my whole world around.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Rachel, but sometimes when we have these events that sort of come out of nowhere, or so it seems, it really is because we were on the wrong path. You know, sometimes, particularly with the planet Uranus working in each and every person's individual chart, it just sort of shows us that we need to sort of have a correction really quickly. What they're showing me is it was considered what I would term as a massive ending or a massive change in your life. It might not have necessarily been the easiest of situations to deal with, but I do feel that you are coming out the other side now. And what they're showing me is a freshness, that you will have an opportunity to reboot your life, I feel, in a much stronger way, where you're going to be much more in control than what you were before this event happened. It was almost like you were losing your grip. So even though it might have been difficult and it sort of knocked you back a little bit, I'm going to say in the next couple of months out of this, you will see something positive. You will see, like the green shoots growing after the winter, that things are starting to sprout again and your life is going to start to take off. I actually feel quite excited. It was sort of like you had to have this sudden thump to be able to come out the other side and everything to become fresh and new and exciting and very, very different, with a new wisdom is going to come to you too, Rachel. It's sort of almost like there isn't much now that could really stop you, I think. You know, you're always going to be sort of able to move forward now. So I hope that's helped you, sweetie.
What?
I said, I hope that's helped you with that information.
Could you say that again? I'm sorry.
I said, I hope that's helped you with the information I've shared with you, Rachel, the reading.
Yeah. I mean, what happened was my house got broken into and something that was very precious to me got taken.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Look, I get a strong feeling that that precious item that was taken is going to be returned. I don't think it's going to be next week. I do feel that there's a little bit of time there, but I do feel that it will be returned to you, Rachel. So just keep positive and know that it will be returned, sweetheart. That's where we're going to leave, Rachel. We're going to go to Rosemary in Denver in Colorado, USA. Are you there, Rosemary?
Yes, I'm here.
You have a question I can work with, sweetie?
Excuse me?
Do you have a question I can help you with?
Yes. Maybe a message from my husband.
So your husband's passed over, is he, sweetie?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Look, I'm sorry to hear that your husband's passed over. They don't always just come through just because we want them to, Rosemary. Do you have an area of your life you'd like me to look at? And then hopefully he might chime in with a message for us.
Finances.
Finances, okay. Let's have a look at your finances for you. It's really interesting, Rosemary, because what they're showing me is even though it feels extremely difficult and finances really feel stretched to the limit at the moment, you're learning so much about how to sort of reorganise your life. Look, I'm not trying to minimise the fact that, you know, when you lose somebody, and particularly a husband, it literally is like, half of you's gone away with them. And it takes time, I feel, before you get back to sort of finding what's the new normal. And it's an exclusive club, widowhood. I mean, I was part of that club and I would never wish that on anybody, so I can speak firsthand. But what he's sort of showing me is that you're much stronger than what you realise. I mean, I know he's there with you all the time, and he keeps showing me that he wants you to sort of dry your tears, but he's also sharing with me there's question marks. Now, are those question marks concerning in how he passed away, or are they question marks about life in general of what to do next?
Both.
Both. Okay, sweetie. Because he showed me two separate question marks and they weren't sitting together, and that's why I thought they may relate to two separate situations. What he's saying to me is by August you'll have the answers to both. Now, he wants you to just sort of try and be strong, try and focus on what you need to know and where you need to be sort of putting one foot in front of the other, but he is guaranteeing me that finances will get easier. And it's not so much that there's more money coming in, it's just that you're starting to take more control of it and you're not adding to the spending or adding to the money that's on an outgoing basis, that you're starting to take, you're getting in the driver's seat with this. So this is why it seems like it's getting easier. He's really, really proud of you. So has it been a recent passing, has it, Rosemary, in the last 12 months, has it? It feels very fresh.
It'll be 2 years in May.
Yeah, darling, but even though it's 2 years in May, it does, there is no bus timetable for how long it takes us to, to find a place to put our grief. I don't think we ever get over it. We just find a place to put it on a shelf where it's not quite as painful as it was yesterday and the week before and the week before. Look, I know you're doing remarkably well, and I think that's the thing that you've got to remind yourself, that you are doing well. That, it's been a tough road.
I lost my whole
life. And
life.
It was something that was very unexpected. And I just sort of feel this year will be a turning point for you, particularly by August, where things start to sort of become clearer, I suppose. It's like you suddenly get answers. The answers have probably always been there, but maybe it's you're ready to accept them then, or you're ready to embrace them then, and it feels like things are going to become a hell of a lot easier for you. But I do know one day you're going to get up, Rosemary, and the sky will be blue again and the sun will be shining, and you really will feel that you can take the reins to your life again with a positive, happy heart. And that's not where you're at the moment. You're still feeling as if, you need to sort of be where you are and allow yourself to grieve. And that's very important too. We need to honour that process, because it is part of the healing process of being able to take the reins back to your life, is allowing yourself to grieve, my love.
I just don't know what I'm supposed to be. I don't know what kind of job I'm supposed to have. I don't know. I lost my whole life and I just am stuck in this grief and I just miss him so much.
Oh, of course you do, darling. Of course you miss him so very much. Can I suggest to you that you get your hands on a book called On Death and Dying by Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross? That will help you with your stages of grief. There are too many of them for me to go into in this short time we've got on the show now. But I think what we need to do is just try and take one step at a time. And, okay, you don't know what sort of job you're supposed to be doing. Well, let's not try and go back to do something that's going to be very taxing. Let's try and get you into some sort of job that'll give you some income, but also makes you sort of feel that it's something that you can cope with. And I think when we have, our whole life stands still after we lose a husband, we do literally feel like somebody just took our life and threw it out the window and we don't know where to start. So I think if we make the next project is getting you a job, even if it's not the world's greatest job, but it's getting you back out amongst the people, giving you a little bit of income, that will be the first step into the road to recovery of you starting to heal and starting to be able to sort of come through the other side of your grief. But, darling, know your husband's with you every single solitary day, and he is so very proud of you and he loves you so very, very much. He keeps showing me the most beautiful, ginormous pink heart, and it's sort of like that's what he wants to share with you is his love. Anyway, Rosemary, that's where we've
It
got to
was,
leave it. We've come to the end of the
Okay.
show, unfortunately, sweetheart. So I just know he's with you, darling. Please. Okay, so on next week's show, we'll have another trip around the universe. We'll do our secret tarot card of the week. But I just want everybody to really remain focused on making sure that you look after yourself, stay home if you don't feel well, and don't panic. I think that's the most important thing. And make sure that your finances are in good working order if you possibly can. Cut down your spending, sort of just batten down the hatches a little bit. Be prepared for, in case the world goes into recession, that you're recession-proof in your own personal life with your own personal finances. But having said that, I think it's a time that we really do need to appreciate the people that are in our lives and know that our loved ones and our friends are the most important thing in our lives, and that will create our wealth, love, and our destiny. Until next week, bye for now.